All right, so it is just about 7 o'clock, and we'll go ahead and get started with tonight's council committee meeting. So we have quite a few things on the agenda, and the last item will be our task force planning session, talking about goals, hence why we are on the floor today. If you guys remember last year, we did this as the first year, and I think we all enjoyed it for the most part. So being close, understanding what everybody's looking to do for this year is very exciting to hear. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first item on the agenda is the Sunset Avenue speeding issue. Councilman Gary Meyer.
Yeah, this is the one piece I know we've talked about, the pros and cons of speed bumps, humps in the past. It sounded like there might be a significant safety issue, and I think Mr. Kramer has indicated he has some data that you can share, at least with a study that was done.
Yeah, we did a study beginning of last year, January through March. The average speed was 22 miles an hour. The 80 percentile means the top 80 percentile speed is 25 miles an hour, which is the speed limit there. We did do, PD installed the radar sign the day after our last meeting. And let me pull that up real quick. And again, the average majority of the speeds of 5,000 cars that we've looked at, majority of them are 21 to 25, and then 26 to 30, still with the average, still the average is below the speed limit.
And the top speeds were?
Top speed, we had two cars that went 41 to 45 out of 5,000.
What's the speed limit?
25.
And that was back when?
This was the last 2 weeks.
Last 2 weeks. Have we had any additional feedback from the resident that brought?
Yeah, I talked to her. I explained briefly our analysis that Public Works did, kind of the procedure we've been using moving forward. Briefly explained that to her. I got her email actually to send it to her, but after a couple minutes of explaining some of the reasons why we don't like the speed humps, she completely agreed. She didn't even want me to send it to her, and she said that she thinks the sign there, a permanent sign, is really what slows them down, is what she was recommending at that point. So I told her I would tell her what came out of this meeting, but she made the statement to me that she wasn't interested in the speed humps anymore.
Are there other places where we're seeing, significant issues? I know we've talked about it on, what was it? Was it Timberlake or Hallam a while back? Hallam.
Hallam was the one that the gentleman came up here and complained about.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a different type road. I mean, you do have stop signs to slow people down. But my concern with the humps, I came through Edgewood today, and those things will tear up our Public Works snow plows. It will tear up your fire and emergency equipment. Those things are brutal.
Well, yeah, I think it certainly slows you down.
No, you have to almost, I have to stop or my car drags on the bottom. Yeah, you really, I just would think that would be something as a last resort, because I don't want to see our equipment torn up. I think the sign's a good idea.
Well, I think the feedback is what you get. When you're looking at the studies, a lot of it shows it's that positive or negative feedback. You see it on Dudley right now. There's one, and it's like, hey, it's blinking too fast. Okay, stuff like that. And you see people actually starting to brake when they see that.
Yeah, and that's what I discussed with her. It's not that people are intentionally speeding, it's just the inattention, and that's a reminder. And that's kind of why she was pushing towards doing that, which, it is an option for us to purchase another one to maybe dedicate to there, or at least during school, days. But we do have some options there.
What are the costs on those?
Chief Rader, do you remember? Is it $4,000 each? Yeah, so it's $4,000 each. I think it's just a little under that, and then it's about $800 a year for the licensing and the, the live feed. Like right now, I mean, I could pull up sunsets, and it'll show you actual data right now.
We just have the one unit right now, or?
We have two.
We have two, okay.
And we rotate those around. I mean, they've been very helpful since we purchased them. When I do have complaints from citizens, I email PD, they move it. I do a couple weeks. I print out I pull the report and I email it to the citizen.
Yeah.
And I've yet to have any complaints after that. I mean, it's answered kind of all their problems. In fact, we just got another request for one to kind of, which we've done before in that street, but it was more or less just to confirm that it isn't an issue like a lot of people think.
So that's what your data showed with the 5,000 cars, there was 2 speeders, essentially? Is that what?
No, I mean, there's more speeders there, but the average speed is at the speed limit or below.
You said something about 80% though, was that below?
Yeah, so Independence has an ordinance that is extremely restrictive, which I think it should be for speed humps. But one of their criteria is the 85 percentile. It's just a common thing used when we do radar trailers and things like that. It's the top 85%, so you're kind of cutting out the bottom, 15% that are going slower. So that top 85%, for theirs, I think it has to be considered, it has to be 6, Jack, you can jump in, it's around like 6 or 7 miles over, the 85 has to be 6 or 7 miles over the speed limit, and then you have to have 75% approval from the neighbors, and then if it's 8 or more, you only have to have 50%. Because one of the key things, like even in our procedure, in order to move forward, you need to get support of the actual residents, because speed humps do lower property values for those areas. And that's just been, from the research, it actually lowers property values.
Do we have actual data that says that?
Yes, that was part of the analysis.
Can we
Also,
share
the
that?
speed, we sent that out.
Was that part of?
I sent that to you. I sent all the sunset. I sent our procedures that we use currently. Also, the speed between humps, that it's been proven that increases. So yes, they slow down, but then they speed up to get to the next hump because they know they're going to lose time. Additionally, with speed humps, they might find an alternate route, which creates a speed for another street because they are actually going faster to get around the humps. So there's, not every situation, but it's something you have to watch out for if you are adding humps, because that could potentially be an issue. Like Edgewood did on Edgewood Road in Lindale? They did on both of them, right? Because if they only did one, the other one would just fly. So, yeah.
In the last year, how many instances have we had, like car wrecks, anybody struck, anything like that?
On Sunset,
Yeah, okay.
I think 2. We had 2 accidents there, maybe.
I know we still have the sign shop too with her, is it grandson, right? Or is it a grandson or a son? Grandson. I mean, he's living with her?
Are you talking about the person that complained?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I know she had a child.
Okay. I'm just thinking maybe we've put up signs about children before, and maybe that might be something we might want to think about. So.
Our current policy around the speed humps, that's not something we've codified, is it?
No, it's just an internal
Just an internal
procedure
policy.
that the Public Works and we address it every time that we look at that.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's something that we should, I mean, if you're talking about there's some very strict protocols for when they would make sense, is that something that we should look at doing?
It's up to you.
We passed that speed hump ordinance that circulated with least uses, I think.
Yeah.
I think you all asked for it. In Independence, primarily because Independence wanted to give the residents a say with speed humps. But speed humps are no different than stop signs or anything else. It's clearly within the purview of the police department and executive authority. We could codify it, we don't have to.
Okay.
Independence was different. Independence literally wanted to punt the issue to residents because people wanted to come in and put speed humps. But the reality is if you're familiar with independent subdivisions, a lot of them have like 400 homes with one entrance, right? So down that runway strip entrance, people are going 45 miles an hour to get 10 minutes back in there. So everyone who lives on that runway strip wants a speed hump. problem was, is Independence wanted to give the people behind that, the people who have to actually drive over the speed hump, a say in the process. So that was kind of the purpose of that ordinance,
Okay.
was to almost democratize putting in speed humps.
I drive over them every single day, at least 3, so, and I'm still a proponent of them, so. I would just hate us to completely discount them. I mean, I guess in this case, we've got some good data, but I guess we can leave it at that.
Yeah, I
for
mean, we
now
never
until
discounted them, but part of our procedure and additionally, Independence is actually getting the citizens involved. I mean, we need, if we're putting.
No, yeah.
If they were putting a speed hump in front of somebody's house, they should have a say and at least have a vote.
I would say, I mean, I would probably disagree with that if we think there's truly a public safety issue. We don't necessarily have to give them a choice, right? I mean,
But
that's
at least have their input is why, that's part of what the procedure reviews is to give them input.
as it currently stands.
So it's not just one
Yeah.
person out of 50 that want it, and you can play that, say safety all day long, and we can justify it either way, so.
Okay.
I don't know if this is viable or not, but what about doubling the traffic penalty or the penalty for a ticket if it's done within a school zone? Is that something that would be really bad, or?
It's already part of the,
It already is. Because I was going to say, when that light is flashing on Turkey Foot in the morning for the school, you do see people slow down
Yeah.
considerably.
And do we have the option to change the speed limit there to 20 versus 25 if that's something that we wanted to do? I think there's just a psychological difference between 20 versus 25.
your complaints are definitely going to increase,
Well, yeah.
because, that's a long, straight stretch.
I've been thinking about that on Concord, quite a bit, because people don't drive 25, and that's a fun stretch to drive, so.
Right.
Okay.
One of the things that Ms. Dietz was asking me, with the data that we compile, you had mentioned the average speeds, Mr. Kramer. Do we also look at how many people are above the speed limit? I mean, how many instances there are above?
Yeah, I mean, you can do a lot with the data, which is really good. The thing that we use it mostly for is target enforcement, because you can't have a police officer out there all the time. So for some of the bigger roads like Holbert, we'll see the time frames where the speeding is most prevalent, and those are the hour, it'll be an hour block. Typically it is an hour, and that's when the police department sends out patrol to sit during those times. So it really saves manpower by having these signs, so you're not sitting out there at the wrong times, So the data is really beneficial in that aspect to do more targeted enforcement.
All right, I'm good for now.
I got a question or a statement. Why don't we, hey, thank you, Gary. Get some information from Edgewood on what happens when the fire truck, how much damage they've had. You know what I mean, on the fire trucks,
Yeah, we talked to Brian when we put that procedure together, but yeah, it's something we can talk to him again about.
I mean, just for knowledge for something later, maybe,
Mhm.
you know.
Mr. Kramer, do we have the percentage of the speeders on Sunset?
I'd have to pull it. The data, it doesn't have my normal chart that I break out. The chart I got was from Chief Rader yesterday,
Okay.
but it just has.
Certainly something that we can look at.
Yeah, I mean, it's got it broken down, but I generally do the percentage, the 85% and the average, and that doesn't specify on there. I'm sure I can do the math real quick, or somebody could, maybe not me.
We can probably talk about it after.
And I think that's something, Chief Rader, didn't we put that out on Facebook last year, actually, the sunset data, didn't we? Yeah, that was the first time we ever put it out on Facebook, where we actually put the data out. So that should be on the police department's Facebook page from last year, actually.
Gary, do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions on that item? Okay. We'll go ahead and move forward to item number 2, City's Brand Story, with Dustin Miller here with KYDA. Dustin, if you want to come and sit in that seat, that's fine. And then Tyson, if you can show him how to use the mic.
Well, Matt's setting up the screen for me. Go ahead and pass these out, but if you could just hold up for a moment while I guide you through the booklet. As just mentioned, my name is Dustin Miller. I am a Rhode Island resident. I am the owner and creative director of Creative Consulting, branding, and marketing application service. First of all, thank you all very much for your time this evening. I'd like to thank the council for this opportunity. Oh, yeah, put that while I see here. I'll flip the pages for you. Over the last 3 months, I've been blessed with an opportunity to play a larger role in this community than I ever could have imagined. As a resident of Erlanger and as the home of my business, when I was approached by Mayor Jessica Fette to play that greater role, I couldn't turn down the opportunity, and I welcomed it with open arms. Through the work that I've done, I would really like to frame the process that we've been through by sharing some things that I've come across in my research of Erlanger. What makes a good town? Not the houses, though it does help if they are good, but towns make houses, not houses towns. It would be a poor sort of town that had nothing in it but houses. What makes a good town? Not streets, though hard ones are a lot better than soft ones, and smooth better than rough, but almost any kind of streets will do where there's nobody to travel them. A lot of towns that started with wide streets and good sidewalks never got any further. What makes a good town? No electric lights, city water, and modern means of conveyance. Who wants to be in bondage to a bathtub? Who cares for an arc light over a graveyard? What's the use of streetcars to a place where nobody lives and nobody wants to go? What makes a good town? None of these things. We make the town and make it good or bad as we are good or bad, fast or slow as we are fast or slow, dead or alive as we are dead or alive. No use to dodge the issue, boys. We the people make a town. So then let's make it a good town. What do you say? This was a passage that I found in the Buffalo Trails book from the Erlanger Improvement Association, and it's something that has stuck with me throughout this entire process. I feel like this is my opportunity to move fast, and it's my opportunity to be a contributor to this community. Something that makes Erlanger special is the characteristic that Erlanger brings to this evolving relationship, referring to the connection to the world. However, it is our sense of small town, bedrock American values, our work ethic, our friendliness, and our sense of community. This came from Mayor Mark T. Otto Sr. In this document, some of the questions that I hope to answer are, does the current image, voice, tone, and feel of the city marketing accurately convey who Erlanger is? Does the current marketing provide advantages or disadvantages? Does the marketing represent the city values? What opportunities can we find? We believe that everything is on the table until it is off the table. I'm going to skip to the project origin. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have a decent agenda in front of you, so I will try to move efficiently through what is 3 months of work. Our partnership was initiated with the City of Erlanger and my business to develop the branding and marketing for the 2020 Summer Send-Off event that we are looking forward to. During conversations regarding the event, the branding, it was evident there were significant and consequential gaps in the marketing. Our meetings centered around the lack of marketing collateral and the challenges that outdated marketing concepts can create. I want to stress this point greatly. The initiation of our process never leads with the purpose of change. I have never told a client they should change something. It has always been, let us learn together. It is strictly a mission of understanding at this point. In our process, we trust 4 stages that are designed to collect a massive amount of information. We refine what is collected and deliver dynamic branding that is designed for impact. The City of Erlanger selected completing the exploration and alignment phases of the KYDA process. The following pages contain a summary of these findings. I will briefly go through the exploration phase that contains 6 areas of focus led by our perspective interviews. The information collected from each individual is then placed into a custom branding workshop to further refine the information collected. So let me be clear about this process. Myself, along with Mayor Jessica Fette, worked together to define a list of individuals that could help make me an expert on Erlanger. Yes, I've been a resident for multiple years, but I can't know everything that there is. And one of the saddest things a client ever said to me is that they didn't believe their marketer knew anything about their business or who they were. That's when I knew that there was a way that I could do this differently. So what I will go through is what we consider the exploration phase, which is a thorough analysis of a subject or theme. And within that phase, there are 6 different categories. It begins with the perspective interviews. We then define your target audience. We look at your funnel and your filtering, which are themes that are brought from many years in sales and marketing. We also look at your conversation location. Where are your conversations taking place? If we don't know where they're taking place, I don't know what to design. I don't know what your marketing collateral should look like. One of the questions that came up when I first met with the mayor was her idea of a folder with 8.5 by 11 inserts. One of the things that we will learn throughout this process is perhaps that medium wasn't going to properly suit what was actually needed and where those conversations were taking place. Let me go through the perspective summary because I will also go through the rest of the areas, including content and identity. In the perspectives interviews, there were 15 interviews, more than 30 hours, and more than 297 questions. 100% of participants wanted to see a change in the brand image and believe the timing of examining the brand is positive. Participants believed a change could help make Erlanger more competitive, and many realized the need to compete for new residents and businesses is a reality of today. Now, I will tell you one thing that I do believe is my marketing is never going to be the change. It is all about the people in this community and the decisions that are made in this room. The only thing I can do is help you tell that story better. Participants focused on the city atmosphere, the feel of the community, and wanted the history of Erlanger more involved in the marketing story. As a degreed urban planner, I totally supported this. It's a part of my heart and it's a part of who I am. Questions were raised, why are we the Friendship City? What does that mean and what is the city doing to live that? Today, as a business, an organization, or any entity, any claims that you make in your marketing, any statements that you are making, people are looking for the ways that you are living by that. And as a resident of Erlanger, as somebody that moved into this community, my interaction with Jess has really truly been my first interaction with Erlanger and the first introduction. So I knew immediately that there were deficiencies, opportunities that I could help address with the skill set that I have available to me. Proximity was noted as the most significant reason to live in Erlanger. It was close to all of the amenities that are not in Erlanger. This was also a challenge that was presented when having these conversations. This was a shared perspective pretty much widely across every interview. The contrast in the amenity proximity versus residential atmosphere is actually a benefit and a strong priority to me in framing the marketing. That contrast can be absolutely amazing. You want your family to have amenities and activities and be able to go places and do things, but you also want the quiet community of just good people and great relationships and a nice place to come home to. there's value in that, and I think that that's something that we can definitely benefit from. The history of the city needs to be incorporated into the city's story without looking dated. A more modern look and feel is desired and should be carefully balanced with that history. City representatives require the marketing media necessary to communicate, influence, and inform their target audience. I'll take a moment and see if anybody has any brief questions about this section of our process. Yes, Patty?
I would like to know who participated. You said 100% of the participants felt the need to change the brand image. Who were those people?
Well, it would either be looking for a change or at least looking for the examination of how is it currently performing with what we are using. I spoke with a variety of individuals, including Mayor Fette, Tyson Hermes, Matt Kramer. I also spoke with Kevin Quinn. I spoke with 3 realtors. I spoke with Corinne on the phone. I placed other phone calls. I met with Sherry. I wanted to meet with anybody and everybody that would talk to me. And I am absolutely open to that because I wanted to assimilate quickly. You know, this is a 3-month process, but you would often like more time. Our goal was really looking at what could we do in January, what could we do with 2020. We're very big on compounding on marketing. You know, 2020, starting off 2020 with a major consideration, and I say it as a consideration because, like I said, we're not here to tell you to change. We're just asking, should you change? Is there opportunity to change, and what can we achieve if we do? If you gave me a list of 25 people, I would meet with every single one of them.
I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Well, it's.
I mean, we just did a branding a year ago. So we're gonna brand every time we have a new mayor? You know what I'm saying? It seems to be money wasted in my.
I have.
Yeah, it was in the email that I sent out.
Renee, he was asking that we not necessarily share that very broadly.
Can we let him continue with his presentation, please?
I can't speak to the process that you've been through because I only know my process. But what I can speak to is what I'm able to see and look for the story that's being told, and are there opportunities, and hopefully by the end of this, you just at least understand what the perspective was that came out of this process. Sure.
But I think there's a couple differences, though, between at least what I understand, what I'm seeing here.
Sure.
We attempted to go through a logo process before under Mayor Hermes versus a complete branding, looking at everything. So I think that's a significant difference.
Today, it no longer services you well enough to go to someone and ask for a logo. It doesn't work that way. There's too many mediums, there's too many channels, there's too many conversations, too many target audience members. That's really what this is taking as much information as possible and throwing it into a tumbler and finding the exact right combination that achieves all of the goals that we want to achieve. I'm looking for as many wins as possible. So when I measured what you currently have, this is not just looking at a logo, I'm looking at your website. This is only the first half of the process. We will also take care of all of the writing, the creating of the material, and this is a partnership, which is why I wanted to sit at this table. I don't want to pitch you on something. I should never have to pitch a client on this type of work. This is a partnership of something that we do together, and that is what has made this unique. When we talked about the audience and discussed it in the workshop, we really boiled it down to 4 silos and 4 core targets. The silos that we identified were residents, businesses, internal groups, and external groups. And I think that may highlight, Gary, exactly what you're talking about, that this is not just a logo, we're also looking at how we communicate internally to employees of the city of Erlanger, communicating with local groups, communicating with external groups, external cities, other organizations. All of that is a part of our identity. It's a part of our brand. And the more that we can have exercise control over that, the more success we can have. I kind of look at marketing like tying strings to things. You know, you tie a string to something and you yank on it one day and you've never pulled on it before, you can imagine the reaction that you're going to get. But if I can tie as many strings as possible and just slightly pluck on them occasionally with the right message, the right tone, and the right voice, I can be very successful when I need to pull on those strings. During the workshop, it was widely agreed that there are opportunities to improve marketing and communication between the city and current residents, specifically around the ability to deliver on the promise of being the Friendship City. Each participant in the workshop helped align data points or content sources with the core targets to help define a structure for building marketing collateral. This is a very, very simple concept, and the same thing as you have in sales or thinking about an elevator speech. I only have so much time to deliver so much information and a certain message in a certain space, whether it's a piece of print, a website, an email, or otherwise. So I want to make the most of that opportunity and utilize it, and keeping in mind who my target audience is. So understanding who those people are and what they need are going to help us identify the location of the conversations where we can be successful. The overall summation of the feedback during the workshop is used to find a balance between all silos and targets when developing any marketing and assessing conversation location. The funnel and the filtering. There are at least 5 layers and more than 15 plus mediums. Conversations are occurring with the city of Erlanger and the target audience. Those conversations occur throughout stages where the audience member is interacting with the city branding, content, and representatives. The layers of that funnel are introduce or the introductory. It's when someone first learns about who Erlanger is. Maybe it's from the website, maybe it's from a conversation, maybe it's from Triad. You know, it may even be Dave Hahn from Economic Development introducing Erlanger to them. What are we creating to help in that communication? When Triad communicates with a business, we're often not the first ones at the table, which is why I mentioned the folder in the 8.5 by 11s. If you're sitting right in front of somebody and you have that folder and you can pull it out and hand them a sheet of paper, that can absolutely work. But if you're not even in the room and they're having a conversation about possibly choosing Erlanger, that's an opportunity. That's some place where we can increase our voice. Then we have the evaluation and the comparison when they measure and actually start to look at, is this going to be a good fit for us? A lot of businesses come to mind, residents come to mind. When they're actually making their decision, and then existing. Existing is a big key to me. That's a big focus. It is much harder to get new than it is to keep what you have. So I think a part of this marketing strategy and looking at the brand and the identity is how are we communicating with the residents that are currently here? How are we showing them that we're the Friendship City? Though a city, as any business, you want to move target audience personas successfully through the sales funnel to conversion. By identifying the target audience, we can work with city representatives to design the right marketing in the correct medium to create a cohesive and controlled brand experience on all levels. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg today. Understanding the limitations to marketing communication will allow for us to design marketing collateral that can reach conversion locations previously without representation. Each participant in the workshop helped align those data points and content sources with the core targets. This is such a key part of what it is that we're doing in looking at the marketing. This is beyond a logo. I will move pretty swiftly through these. The conversations and the content are typically the focus of our alignment phase of our process, where we actually now take what you have decided is our look, our tone, our feel. Every line matters, every shape matters, every color matters, and oftentimes when you talk to me about the design, there's a lot that I am forecasting on how we're going to organize and design the rest of the marketing collateral. I'm already starting to see how this is going to start to align and make things easier to organize your information on any type of print or digital media. Based on the information provided throughout this process, the conversation category was highlighted as one of the most important factors to consider when developing future marketing collateral for the city of Erlanger. Challenges exist from the funnel and filtering to conversations because of the role realtors and third-party organizations play in the storytelling of the City of Erlanger brand. Again, there are opportunities for us to own those conversations in places we previously have not. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to realtors. When are you talking to them about Erlanger? What are they asking you? Are they saying that they've been to the website? What resources are they using? Is there something we can create to influence that conversation? When a representative and when representation has access to and is involved early in the funnel, they are ill-equipped to use relevant marketing mediums to help communicate with targeted audience personas. This is one of the challenges that we will resolve in the next phase of the process. There's a lack of control over the brand standards enforced across all print and digital mediums. What fonts are used, what logos are used, things are across the board, and we want to do it where it's cohesive. And it always looks like, whenever we put anything out, it looks like Erlanger. Opportunities exist to create differentiators and calls to action that will help the city live their values and deliver a brand experience that sets us apart from our competition. Content development is a critical process within the alignment phase. Once the core brand identity is beyond expectation, the conversation locations and target audience will be used to design the marketing collateral across the mediums. This is a part of the process. We will actually work with the city directly to design the marketing collateral that is needed for the future. Production limitations, costs, and future branding investments are absolutely considered in marketing collateral framework that defines the content delivery. You have to be aware of the mediums you're choosing and how much they're going to cost you. We know better than to just present you with a logo and expect that this is going to be an easy transition. There are going to be costs involved. We do design in such a way to not increase those costs when needed. Based on the brand image selection and vision, a marketing strategy will be created and the content will be selected based on meetings with my company and the City of Erlanger.
Can you define marketing collateral?
Let's say a piece of print, a business card, an 8.5 by 11, anything you put your logo on, anything that touches any viewer of your brand and identity. There were very specific ideas and conversations that took place when we decided to take a look at a logo. Initial conversations involved logo examples that were versatile. They had the capability of either breaking down into iconography or could be used in a variety of ways across mediums. Many logos today are being designed to help you organize, in an urban planner's terms, signage and wayfinding. It is between websites, print collateral, and otherwise, it is very difficult to provide someone easy pathways and visuals to help them know where they're going to find the information that they want. And I have found many logos that are becoming more versatile in their ability to break down, to carry different theming, to be used in different marketing ways, to be versatile. And that is something that what we will present you is going to absolutely be capable of doing. The mission of the process is to examine all variables and design a brand image that elevates the story of Erlanger on as many levels as possible. The design features bold, strong, and modern lines. The often traditional seal was avoided, and each aspect of the design is specific to tell a different element of the story of Erlanger. To me, the story of Silver Lake and the railroad must be included in the story of Erlanger. Positioning was a strong consideration when deciding to highlight the history through color and shape. Positioning requires us to look around us at what other people are doing, what other cities are doing. Completely focusing the logo on rail was not providing the positioning that we were looking for. And so we wanted to tie it in a different way. We wanted to include it as a part of the history of this community and something that people got a sense of. The lines, and if you would like, you can flip back and forth between this page and the next page as I read, because you can actually see the logo. The lines bookending the text, City of, provides a baseline for the logo for balance, but the text placement with the lines was designed to symbolize the intersection of Erlanger and its history of placement. That is something that blew me away, that Erlanger has always been at the intersection and at the point of progress. Whether it was Dixie Highway, whether it was the original Buffalo Trail, whether it was the rail, whether it was Silver Lake, there was always something, though. There was always something that Erlanger was in the right spot at the right time, and that's a very unique part of the history of this community and something that we wanted to tell. How are we on time? Am I running? We good? Okay. What could we set the foundation of the city brand identity in? That was a struggle. You know, something when we looked at the physical environment, we have the train station. We have the city building. The city building was an excellent choice of a visual identity, something that people can relate to. It's a beautiful building. And I really thought that this was the image, this was a part of the image, this was something that could help tell the story of Erlanger. We couldn't lose the sense of community, the unique role the city government plays, and the family atmosphere created by the people here. That dictated the positioning of the city building and the homes above it. The city government is here to support the community of Erlanger, and the community of Erlanger is visually set above the building. The building is somewhat in two parts. The left side of it was designed to also represent business and commerce in the area. Yes, when you tie it together, you could see it as being the entire building. But it was a visual identity that we really felt people outside of the community could get a sense of what it could feel like to be in Erlanger. And it's a visual identity that we thought current residents could emotionally gravitate towards. The unique experiences you can have by living moments from the city versus moments from the country is something special to our area. The trees, the green, it wasn't just for contrast. Something I love about this area is the feel here, the atmosphere, being able to go minutes down the highway to beautiful Kentucky countryside, or turning around and going minutes into downtown Cincinnati. That is something very unique about the area that we live in, but I wanted the logo to give us a sense of feel. A feel for what it's like to live in this place. Designing a brand requires paying respect to the history of it. The flags are used to not only frame the identity of the city building, but also to house the star, the location marker from previous designs. This is not a complete departure from what's been used in the past. If you actually take a look very closely, not initially intentionally, but slowly crafted over time once we realized the possibility, the entire design from city of up starts to take the shape of Kentucky. And if you look at the location of the flag and the star on the flag, that's exactly what you have in the current logo, is the location of Erlanger. Yes, ma'am. There are many aspects of the design that are meant to pay respect to history, that are part of telling the story, that don't always have to be right out front and center and the first thing that you notice. But a lot of the questions that, the description that you've heard of the logo, I asked those questions of the visual identity that I had been seeing previously for the city of Erlanger. And as I mentioned, the logo design has the capability to not only be themed, which is something we are seeing many cities do today, but also to break down into iconography that is going to help in organizing content and marketing collateral. And I will close with the opportunity to examine your current brand identity. Communication, marketing, and processes can be a platform to launch exciting new marketing efforts. We believe in energy, not just the appearance of growth, but actual proactive choices that tell your audience, we are moving forward and you should be a part of what's next. The story of Erlanger is not just told in the brand. This project can also tell a story to those who are loyal to the future of Erlanger. This is the time you want to be in Erlanger. The work we did yesterday and today is going to create a fantastic tomorrow. We live in a vibrant, growing community with a unique story to share. We can energize the Erlanger community around positive changes that take all of us working together. I would love any shared thoughts, questions.
There's been some discussion, not serious discussion yet, but I'm here again looking to the future. We demolished that building, which has been talked about. What are we stuck with? I mean, what do we?
That's a great,
Yeah.
What is this rebranding going on? What is this going to be on?
Everything, my understanding.
No. No. What is this going to be on?
I mean, ultimately, through a phased-in approach, I mean, it won't go on their badges, of course. I mean, on the cruisers, the current logo isn't on there. That wouldn't go on a cruiser or the fire truck. The current logo is not on there either.
this would go
But
on
this-
those though, right? I mean, that would be the intention of at least
Well,
having
they
that.
don't have a logo. They have their badge. Their badge image is on the side of the cruisers, and that would remain the same. This would be all marketing materials moving forward. So something that Dave and I had talked a lot about was having economic development marketing pieces. So when we go into a meeting with Atlas Air and we are trying to, we get information from them that sells their business to us. It tells what their business is all about, some statistics. We don't have anything to give them in return. So we need some collateral to be able to tell our story when we have those types of meetings. So that's one example of where this logo would be represented.
I guess I got two things on it. One, I think Mr. Hermes is much better than the upside-down tape dispenser that we had before. Sorry, I just had you gotta have a little fun with these things.
Okay,
But,
you opened the door.
no, I'm not,
That-
I
that
got another
was-
comment still first.
Let's keep in mind where that came from, and that was more than a year ago. I mean, that
Oh,
was.
I understand, yeah.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot to unpack here. I think one concern that I would have is if we're not putting it on everything we have. So if you think of, Florence, like I'm thinking about, that you see, that their image on their police cars. You see it on everything else. So I'd be concerned about brand dilution if we're going to have something completely different on all these other pieces as we go forward. I think it's something that needs to be holistic and it's everywhere that you see.
And that's definitely the intention. I mean, I've discussed this with the leadership team, that this is moving forward the logo. So any kind of, information that they're putting out, it's the one consistent logo. It's consistency across all departments.
I personally, if I got this from the police, I wouldn't take it very seriously because the police, when they're issuing citation, just letters about things, let me go back. Okay, when I spoke with you on the phone one day when I got home from work, and And we had this great conversation about the history of Erlanger and bringing in what would bring people in and businesses in, and we talked about heritage and all that stuff. And I am all for that, but I don't want to change, I did not want to change the logo. I like our E, I like it, the serious, of the first one on the left. I like it doesn't match, like Public Works has their own and Fire has, I mean, they all have their own special one, but it's more uniform to it than this is to me. And I mean, I'm not criticizing this at all. It just, to me, this isn't what I envisioned. I envision this logo with what you're bringing into, with the history and the branding of advertising for us to make us more desirable for people to work in and to live in. I am definitely all for that. That's just my opinion.
One of the things that we're very careful about is vision, which is why we have a process of bringing people in to learn what your perspective is. To be quite frank, the current logo, of course, can serve you as a city logo. As a resident, as a business, the brand does nothing for me. And there are deficiencies throughout my research that I believe we can combat by making some changes. And I don't think that the current branding gives you that same capability. I think it stays in line with what many people form as perceptions and opinions of our area. And that's from a lot of time sitting and talking to realtors for multiple hours about their direct conversations with residents who are considering our area. And I think that we can change their perception. I don't think the current logo can do that. And I don't believe the current logo either has the details or components necessary to allow for a strong brand to be carried out through the rest of the marketing. There's very little there. The story it tells me is that it's located in northern Kentucky and it's in Kentucky and it starts with the letter E. And I know that it can stand for and look for what traditional city logos have looked like. If you would like an example, look at our neighbors in Covington. They went from a seal to a C with a hand. What do you think they're seeing? What do you think they're realizing about their audience? What they were using was not communicating with who they wanted to bring in. One of the things that I tell a lot of my clients is I need to know who you want to bring in. I need to know who you want to reach. Those are the people we're interested in. Those are the people that we need. We need those new businesses. We need those new startups. We need to appear like a growing and vibrant and telling that story of a lot of what I realized is really going on inside. But when I talk to people about who are having actual conversations with either businesses or residents that are considering moving into this area, we're not at the top of that list. And they have their reasons. I didn't put them in all of this because that's not what this is for. But if there are opportunities, there are definite opportunities out there, and I will tell you, I cannot accomplish those with what you have currently.
I have a question. Did you do the branding for Covington?
No, I did not.
You did not,
No.
okay. I was going to ask you, for whom have you done branding before? Companies or cities or whatever? Do you have any examples?
I have a full portfolio that I can send. I did not bring it with me. I've
Okay.
got more than 30.
I'd just be
yeah,
curious
I've got
to
more
see.
than 30 logos, 8 full rebrands. My experience in design is 20 plus years. I have experience. What seems to suit me well for this is my urban planning background combined with my design experience. My actual branding methodology and my process comes from Walt Disney Imagineering, which is where I took my training for
Wow,
that.
okay.
So there's quite a bit that I am bringing to the table on this, and this is a direction that I am going to be going in. With my background, it will be city branding, and it is going to be a focus of mine, even though it has not yet. Previously and recently, I was serving as the marketing coordinator at Newport on the Levee before they sold the property. it was at that time I decided that I wanted to own my own fortune moving forward.
I wanted to ask you too, is it possible to use different, whatever you call them, logos or this brand here, icons, yeah, for different purposes? Because I can see where this would be more appealing to businesses, for example,
And residents.
and residents, right? And this could be like more official type things?
Absolutely.
Because, yeah, because I see what you're saying. This one right here, it's really neat. I like it, beautiful. But then on the other hand, I can see where this one, if I'm going into a meeting with some clients and I want to sell Erlanger, I'm envisioning, maybe this is not what we're talking about, but I'm envisioning, okay, this is our history, this is where we're going, this represents us, that type of thing. So we can show them, this is what we've got, this is where we came from, this is what we're offering you, this is where we want to go, that type of thing.
I definitely think that that's possible. I do, because even when there was a side-by-side image in some of my research where you can see the Covington's C, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great, but it does lack some of what comes out of a city logo, and I understand. You're looking for
Right.
the since whatever year, you're looking for it to be kind of a round seal, like you're looking for text that curves around it, but everybody's done that. They've been doing that.
Right.
If you position yourself in the same place, that's exactly where you're going to stay. That's why you saw what Covington did. They went a little more modern. Now, they have to still use the seal on things. And so I'm not saying you change everything. And in fact, like I said, I don't come in telling you to change anything. All I can do is learn about you, give you my recommendations, partner with you. Let's erase the deficiencies, take advantage of those opportunities because they're there.
I like the idea of portfolio where I can say, hey, this is what we've got, to boast, what we're offering. Like you said, especially residents that are looking at homes, the realtors could, hand out this little whatever. And if you go into a meeting like Dave Hahn and our people do, they could take that with them. I think that would be awesome.
Absolutely. And it really does go deeper than that because you said it, some of the discussion that we had is, and I talked to the realtors about this, if there was a booklet, a welcome to Erlanger booklet when you're showing a home.
I remember that, yeah.
That's a place where the conversation is happening. And from somebody with a lot of sales experience, I don't like that I'm not there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that puts us at a disadvantage.
Right.
I believe I can absolutely create the right material to at least win the opportunity to say, hey, take a look at us. That's where I think we might be losing. I want to get their attention for a little bit because I think when they really learn about us and learn about this community, we're going to win again. But I need to get them in the door.
Right. Thank you.
Well, and Vicki, I know we're saying we'd like to use both, but that's going to be a function of the administration. It's not, Dustin's going to have nothing to do with that decision. Am I right in saying that? If we wanted to use one as the seal of Erlanger and one for external marketing, I mean. Well, Vicki was asking if we could use both.
I think the answer is yes, because I don't think we're codifying anything.
Okay. I think this is beautiful. I think there's a level of sophistication with the current branding that isn't with the new branding, but that's not a slight by any means. I think this is beautiful. And there's a lot of thought that goes into it. I love the train track. I mean, this is just too cool. I'm looking at it from a similar lens, Vicki, to where I think that there should be two or somehow multi-use of both on more official documentation.
And it doesn't mean that maybe if this goes really well, if this is used in a very positive fashion, one of the things that we looked at in the original, I did not move forward with the breaking down of the logo into iconography. I was actually in the initial design, in the initial colors, the way it was set up. I broke it down into Parks and Recreation. There were 4 categories, and you literally had pieces of the logo in every single one of them. And it really had an awesome effect on the way that you could lay out the marketing from there. It gave me so much opportunity of what I could do in the future. This, though, can, I believe, also be fashioned into something that could look a little more official, or maybe we're able to just take a little bit of this and rub off on the other one a little bit, but to make them feel more cohesive and not so far apart. It may just be coloring. It may be leave it alone exactly as is, just tweak your colors just a little bit so it matches up with the new one, and it'll still look cohesive. But again, I need to see that as we kind of go through, but that's why this is not a pitch. This is a partnership. This is, let's get there. I want to help get there.
Well, when this logo that we have hanging on the wall, that didn't cost the city anything. It was volunteered. Bill Howard worked on it. I worked on it. There were several others that worked on it. And the star is where Erlanger is. All those little curlicues and stuff is the river between Ohio and Kentucky. So there is some symbolism in that. I mean, it's not just an E with a star.
No,
Some
but
of those
I
things are
understand.
there for a reason. I'm not saying I totally disagree with yours, but this didn't cost the city anything because of the ones that volunteered. And then if I remember right, we had like a, not really a contest, but everybody submitted their ideas and we kind of voted on it and we worked on it together. And this is what we came up with. So
There's nothing negative to be said about what was created, but it's when I ask the questions of what is it actually telling me. Because the river was not as strong in the history. It was Silver Lake and it was the rail, not the river, that helped grow Erlanger into what it is today. So that being a part of that story, what does that say to a business or a resident? How does that influence someone today that is heavily influenced by brands? We have to tell them a story earlier than we are. We have that opportunity, and I believe we can do so. And like I said, I'm not saying that you get rid of anything. I'll be the first person. I have a very thick skin as far as being able to receive any kind of criticisms of my work, and I'm very sensitive to criticizing anyone else's. But there's opportunity, and I can't deny it.
No, I didn't have a question. Well, actually, I guess I kind of do. Is there an ask of council at this point, or is it just more awareness kind of, and as we start to get into any budget planning, if there's any considerations at that point?
Did you have a question?
I would also like to address the positive time you put in as a volunteer. I may not be able to volunteer everything, and I will be more than happy to share, and I'm sure Jess will share what our agreement was, but the amount of time and the market value of what I have put in is in the tens of thousands of dollars, and we are nowhere near talking those numbers. So
And I understand that.
it was important to me to do this work, and I would have done it no matter what.
And I understand that. I don't have a college education. I mean, I've got some common sense. Don would probably say I don't have a lot, but you know.
Well, you had asked about cost, and I understand you being sensitive to that because I'm very understanding of my clients being sensitive to that. It's, I show them a logo, and then all of a sudden they realize the bill that comes with it to be able to fully implement it across all levels successfully. You don't really want to do a drip campaign as far as like slowly implementing your marketing, if at all possible, but sometimes financials and budgets force us to do otherwise. So I really don't try to go in changing things because I know what it's going to cost. So I'm sensitive about the financials, and I was excited to do as much work as possible because I love it.
Yeah, I think the last council meeting was the only time that council was really informed that Mayor Fette was even working on his project. And it's like, she should have informed us as to, hey, I think we need something like this. We're going to work on something like this. What's people's opinion before jumping in and spending money? Because we lost $5,000 on the last deal. So it's like, it just, there's a communication gap there that needs to be, together a little more instead of her just saying, hey, I'm out here working on this and now I'm going to lay this down for you guys,
I don't disagree with you
I mean, you know.
whatsoever. This is an open and an inviting process. I think, though, what everybody was able to share with me, hopefully you can feel in what we've created, and I think you would have said many of the same kind words about Erlanger. We didn't sit and talk about colors or shapes.
Well, the thing of it is, I mean, and then it was brought up, well, it's in the budget to do it. Whether it's in the budget to do it or not, that's fine, but do you really have to spend it right now? I mean, we just went through that a couple of years ago. I mean,
Just going through it and the timing
putting
of
the
it.
logos and all that stuff, it's,
Just going through it and the timing of it doesn't necessarily mean that it was done in the way that was the most
it
beneficial
doesn't
for the
matter, it's
city.
done been done. I mean, we don't have to do it every 2 or 3 years.
No.
I'll
Are we going to
explain-
do it every time we get a new mayor?
Okay. I'll explain the timing. So Peter and his team have been working on Parks Master Planning, and a lot of that there's in the budget sign package. So when we're thinking about our signs, we want to make sure that we're implementing a brand on our sign that is going to carry through many years. When we pair it with what Dave has requested of me, with economic development marketing pieces, it was an opportunity to, before we spend any money on printing the signs for the sign package, let's actually take a step back, let's reevaluate what actually needs to be on the sign and what message we're trying to create with the sign. So there was definitely some very intentional thought to not wasting money and moving forward with Peter's project.
Well, these signs that you got that says, "Welcome to Erlanger," how long have they been up there? They ain't been up there very long. And nobody can see them because of the color contrast.
Exactly,
So
exactly,
this ain't gonna
Don.
be any better.
But there are many different signs all throughout the city. There's
thought they
not a
were-
cohesive brand.
I
And
thought
that's-
they had all the Welcome to Erlanger signs on all the boundaries of the city.
No,
And they haven't been
there's
there very long.
only, there's only like 3 of them.
Well, somebody tore one down in front of Hagedorn's, come out of VFW, that's one that went down.
Yeah, they were drunk.
So, in Peter's budget, it was for a sign package, hence why these conversations began.
Do you really have to spend it if it's in the budget? I mean,
But
you
we
know, it's
put
like-
it in the budget intentionally.
But I put a lot of things in my budget that I don't spend either. I don't feel like I need it.
I have another comment. You're talking about being cohesive and, being there for a long time. We've discussed the need for Erlanger to have a new resident where we can actually have meetings and parties and things like that that would be our own. That, it's not going to look like that. That's going to be outdated in however soon we find a place that we can build. That's going to be dated.
So something that we are also working on, and Peter and Matt and I have been talking with PCI Architecture to create our structural elements that are going to be consistent throughout the city. And the arch that is on the city building, that is going to be one of these structural pieces that you see throughout the city. So it is our intention to make that part of our image as it has been since 1999.
But don't you think it would be more beneficial if council knew, and I know you can't tell council everything, but so that we don't look stupid when people ask us, well, I heard, well, we didn't hear anything. So I don't understand all this backdoor stuff and planning, and it's all a big secret until it's time for the vote, and then we're just supposed to come and sit down and go, yes, ma'am. I don't get it.
I've had a lot of compliments on our signs, like the one we have on Turkey Foot and Dixie Highway, the Welcome to Erlanger signs. I don't want to change those. Those look beautiful. And I like everything about them. We've had so many people say how nice it looks, and I think this is great work, and I'm not for it, sorry.
Okay, well, yes.
That was my question, and I think the gentleman answered that. This is not going to be on everything, correct? Not
See, that's-
necessarily.
That is not up for me to decide.
Right, that's up for us to decide. I mean, I'm thinking this would be great for when I go into a meeting and say, hey, this is Erlanger, this is what we've got. I'm not thinking about making all new signs and putting a new thing up here and, you know, and I think we have that flexibility. And it's still, that's why we're having this meeting. Oh, okay.
So something that's extremely important is consistency with your brand. So making sure that whether you're in a city building or you're going to one of our parks or you're driving just through the city, maybe you're just driving down Dixie Highway, understanding that there's a sense of place, understanding that you are in Erlanger. So having cohesive branding. So something that we've talked about is not only the architectural elements, but the benches all being the same. You know, when we're doing the Parks Master Planning, you know, making sure that we're buying the same benches, the same looking concrete and the stones that we're using, the brick that we're using, really being intentional with our design. So, you know, there is a sense when you go into Florence, you know you're in Florence. You understand there's a brand consistency that you feel. You know it. I mean, we live in Erlanger, and we know Florence's brand. And I feel like that is so extremely important. And it helps not only tell your brand story, but it sells you as well. So we want to keep the residents that we have and keep the businesses that we have, and we're reinvesting. But then we also want to make sure that we're inviting others in and telling them that story. And you know, going through this process and understanding the history and building the history into this current or this newer logo. You know, it's paying homage to what has been, but then understanding that there's changes that need to happen in order to move us forward. That's kind
Well,
of
I think that we need to bring in the residents and the businesses and get their input too, because I mean, they're part of, it's not just city council, it's not just the 12 people sitting here, but no, it's not us, it's the whole city, so.
And I'll talk to that for just a minute.
Okay.
So when Dustin was doing, some of the people that he left out, he went to Ed Van Eye and Pat Hahn and was able to have detailed conversations about the history and what is important to them. So that was really good at, you have something to add?
The one thing that I try to be careful about is, you know, I think a lot of times when you think about branding companies and what they have been, it's a lot of market research. They're going out there and they're finding out what people think of you and what colors they like, and things have changed. Things are now, how well do you know yourself? They're looking at your website and they're trying to say, how well do you know yourself and how well do you know me as a resident? How well do you know what I need? Do you know what kind of information I'm looking for? Where are the forms at? Where are the names of things? And the look and the feel and the branding is something that surrounds those activities. You'd be amazed at how influential it is. It's just never in the forefront of your mind. It's always something that's a little more in the subconscious. This would have a great impact and a great influence, but one of the other challenges is if we sat and and I don't even know how we would go about it in this community, but if we sat and asked everybody what color they would like, we'd constantly get a different answer. So a lot of that I do appreciate, but we're really just trying to arrive at an accurate image that gives somebody a sense of who Erlanger is as a place and influences them in some way. It educates them as to what this place is like. That's what marketing is doing today. That's what brands are doing today. And if your brand is not doing that, then you're missing the mark.
So I think there's a lot to digest here. And since we don't really have an action to take and we've got a very packed agenda still, I'm going to ask if we could just move on. And I know we can continue just additional conversation down the road on this. I don't think there's anything urgent at the moment.
Thank you, Gary. All right. Thank you, Dustin. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
you
everyone.
being
Thank
here.
you, council. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is item number 3, the insurance premium tax. Councilmember Gary Meyer.
Yeah, I've got a draft ordinance that had worked on putting together. I know Jack's got some cleanup items that he's going to work into here just to make everything much more explicit. There's just a few sections in here. I know one of the pieces that was talked this year, last year, was potentially reducing the insurance premium tax across the board. I think the goal for last year was 0.25%. And then the thought was that we would do another 0.25%. We missed the opportunity last year. We still have time to do that this year. But I think when I looked at just the math on those two pieces, if we had done that 0.25% last year, and then for this next fiscal year, that would have been $174,000. What I have proposed here, and I think I mentioned it during the last council meeting, was that rather than take that broad stroke across everything that's out there, why not attack something that can be much more meaningful, in this case, health insurance. And the idea here would be to reduce the health insurance premium only from 10% to 5%. So what does that mean in terms of the math? When I looked at some of the information I think Kara had provided, health insurance over 2018 was about $387,000. So cutting that in half would be $193,000. So a little bit more than the 174 that we thought we might go after, but I think there's a great story to be told here. If we can reduce, take a small step to reduce the total cost of healthcare, at least for those that are, in our area, that are either buying it privately or buying it through an area business, that's a big win. And I think when we look at the total budget surplus based on the audited reports, we were $1.3 million excess funds over expenditures. So this would still leave, a huge amount, and a very surgical approach, and not necessarily that broad swipe that I was, been pushing for a number of years. So I guess I would say more gray hair, but I don't really have any hair. Makes you a little smarter, but it's been gone quite a long time. So I guess I'll pause there for any questions, thoughts, just around making that one change versus that across-the-board change.
I think it's a great step-by-step process. Are we sure, though, that this is going to trickle down to the people that are in the businesses? Or is it going to, I mean, it's a legitimate question.
It is. I agree it is. I think one of the things that we could do with a little extra PR is make a big deal about it. And then people will know that their businesses that are in this area are having a reduced cost, and hopefully that'll, if not a direct reduction, potentially offset any increases. Because $200,000, to businesses is a good chunk of money.
I think it's also going to impact seniors that are purchasing their health care separately. Having that 10% drop down to 5 could be a potential.
Those that are in that, especially those gap years between some time period before they retired in Medicare.
And we're certain that they are included in this, some people who buy it on the marketplace and.
Yes, this would be all private health care insurance. I think there's still the exemption for group health insurance for state employees. So that's already written in the code. But this would just be those other insurance policies.
Being a senior, this isn't going to affect me at all. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to go see anything. I'm absolutely going to not see anything, reduction in anything. The government decides what I get, what I don't get, what my Medicare is, what my out-of-pocket is, and I will not see a penny change, not a penny change.
But I guess the self-insured will see that reduction.
Yeah, self-insured
Yes.
would directly see that reduction.
Which is a lot of our businesses are actually self-insured. They just happen to have somebody that manages it.
Car insurance premiums, which covers more people in the city since we have a lot of elderly people in our city?
Probably car insurance. I mean, I don't have those. I don't have the numbers sitting right in front of me right now.
The car insurance is a lot heavier of
But we
a
can drop.
dollar amount.
Oh, I know that. I mean, but I don't know if we could drop it like 0.25% or something, or. I mean, I don't know what the. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I didn't really think about it until Kathy said. you know, and we have such an older community, there's probably a lot of people on Medicare and stuff that this won't even help, which I didn't even think about until you said it, Kathy, I'm sorry.
Not old.
But we also have a tremendous amount of small businesses
Yeah.
as well that this negatively impacts. Small business owners or sole proprietorships, partnerships that are running at businesses out of their houses. Yep. And this is,
I know that, one of the things, I almost see this as, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I'm thinking if I'm kind of weighing a couple, decisions around where to relocate my business, we have this massive, piece of land that's still ready to be developed, and, as we get on, Dulwick and those kind of, back in those areas, and if I were looking at it, I knew that this was one of those factors that was going to save me some money, I might make that decision to bring my business here.
Aren't those decisions though made on where a business is headquartered? Not necessarily where they're located from an operational standpoint?
With the way, I don't know I don't know the answer to that question. I know with most of the health insurance premiums where the risk is located.
What was the dollar amount again, you said?
Estimated at $193,000.
193,000, that's taking it from 10% to 5%?
Yep.
So just throwing it out there, what if we took it down to 8% instead of 5% and then did the 0.25%? I wonder for the car insurance, I don't know what total that comes out to, but then it kind of helps more of everybody without being, but I don't know the cost of that would be, because I don't want to make it too high either.
Yeah, I don't have that directly in front of me.
Every time we get our car insurance bill,
Oh, I know.
my husband goes crazy.
Yeah.
He goes absolutely
people do.
bat crazy. And, why don't you do something about this? Why do we pay so much? And he's actually sits there and he has nothing to do but sit and look at it. And we are one of the highest car insurance. I mean, when it comes out, there's so much that goes to the schools, the city, the whatever, in our car insurance bill. It literally is almost doubled, because of the taxes on it.
My concern about reducing the car insurance is with the amount, it would affect everyone in the city that is insured. But me saving $10 a year or $20 a year versus the general fund losing $300,000 or $400,000, that's employees, that's benefits, that's the ability to redevelop. I look at it from more of, it would save me, $10, $20, whatever, my household, 10%. That's not right.
Probably $100.
Yeah, $100 maybe a year.
No, and it wouldn't even be that much. If you've got a $1,000 auto insurance policy, there's $100 in taxes on it. So if we cut it to zero, then it saves you $100 a year.
But at the same time, I'm looking at it from, I'm one of, 18-something thousand residents. So it's affecting, I just want to make sure that we don't lose employees over
Right.
such a significant pay cut that we aren't able to hire more people where we're growing, just to say we cut taxes.
And Rebecca, I would agree with you. I think if this was us saying we had a $300 surplus or $300,000 surplus and we're going to cut it back to $100,000 to do this, you can't make, it's tough to do that, but.
No, I think this is great. With the auto insurance or with the casualty and inland marine and everything else that we've toggled back and forth with, I'd like to see the raw numbers before we start trimming back, because I would hate for it to affect
If I,
Well,
going by
operating.
memory, when we were looking at cutting at 2%, if I remember correctly, that was about
That was substantial.
600,000.
Yeah, that was substantial.
So if it was,
You're right.
and we're not talking about doing 2%, and we're also talking about keeping the health insurance separately, but I'm saying if it was 2% and we did a quarter, so we'd be talking more like probably less than 75,000 because the health insurance is already.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
It's easier to comprehend than hundreds of thousands of
Right.
dollars out of our operating budget, so.
But if we did the health, like a tiny bit for the health and a tiny bit for the car, then I probably would not want to also lower our taxes. I'd probably leave them the same, because you can't just keep lowering everything.
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I think it's more meaningful to start looking at some of these other pieces.
Right.
Not necessarily.
Because real estate taxes are doing pretty good.
And I think for a majority of people, those real estate taxes are hidden in escrow anyway.
Mhm.
They're not necessarily even realizing that they've gone down. Some of us pay attention to them, but.
Yeah.
Carrie, did you, have you talked to any of the businesses or anybody about this? Have we talked to any business owners?
I have not.
I mean, I think that would be, yeah, I think that would be significant too, to see, is this something, the health part of it, is that something that they see as beneficial?
I'll take that as a takeaway here, in advance of our next council meeting, to do that. I know we're still under, it's either we have a first reading in February and second reading in March without a special meeting, so that we can hit the required timing for an effective July date. So I can have a couple of those conversations and be able to report back as we do that first reading. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was in the worksheet. Yeah.
And Gary, not to add a layer of complication, but I'm not entirely convinced that the premium tax for businesses is not sourced where the employees live. Because I do think it's where the risk is. So I think if I went to my office tomorrow and looked at my health insurance bill, because I pay for my employees, I think there's a different tax rate for each employee, and I think, I don't know this for sure, but I think it's where people live, not necessarily where they work.
So then this would be more of a.
It could arguably be a bigger impact, right? Because it's affecting, but I'm not 100% sure of that. That's just kind of my gut right now. I don't think it's based on where. But I can look. I can confirm that with you tomorrow.
Thanks, Jack.
It's a good start. I mean, conversation. Thanks.
We'll go ahead and move on to number 4, demolition ordinance discussion. Mr. Gary Meyer.
All right, this one is the output of the Blight Task Force. There were some edits in here. I know we still have some cleaning up to do. This one has a little bit more flexibility as far as timing, but I wanted to bring this forward, at least have a brief discussion around it, and talk about it in a little more detail, answer any questions. One of the reasons that I wanted to at least have a discussion now is if this is something that we want to approve effective, July the 1st, we would obviously need to work in the money and allocate it in the budget to go forward. But essentially, what we were looking at is we know that there was, some blight. I think as I reported before, there wasn't a significant number of blighted properties, but there are some that, might give someone an incentive to, tear down. I think about, Mr. Kim's martial arts place that's for sale on the corner of Dixie Highway and Rosebud there. So he's selling that property, and some of those buildings, I think they may have been cited in the past. They're in in less than stellar shape. I think they're probably meeting the minimum level now. But as we think about pieces like that, if someone wanted to buy that, tear down these buildings and put up something of of good value, that's really where we were kind of geared towards this, and it was really tough to project how much this might get used. So where we looked at it was if we allocated $100,000 in fiscal year 2021 and have those grants be up to $10,000, but not more than 10% of the total property value. So if they demolished a bunch of properties and put up a $20,000 building, we didn't want to give them $10,000. We'd say, hey, you can have $2,000. You've got a building that meets the current codes and the standards, and it looks nicer than what was there before, but it really didn't, bring something significant. Versus if someone, wanted to build a $1 million piece of property and really, start to revitalize some areas that are worn down, whether it's residential or commercial. We didn't want to differentiate on those pieces, but then the grant would be after all the work was done, so we're not putting any money up front. You've got to do the work, you've got to build the new building, you've got to tear it down, and then once everything's, approved, and I know Dave's going to be integral in this with the, submitting all the documentation, looking at those pieces, but it seemed like a great way to just give an extra incentive for, someone to help with some of these old, torn down, or not old, but, buildings that have seen better days. Rebecca, you have any other comments? I think, or Ms. Kyle, do you have any other? Okay. The worst thing that happens is we allocate some money and no one uses it, and we try something again. Okay, so I guess,
What's,
oh,
Gary?
sorry.
What's going to be the minimum amount that you're going to give somebody to tear down property?
It would be 10% of the value of the new property. So if they tear down, a piece of property and they put up a $200,000 building, they would be able to get 10% of that, up to $10,000.
Okay, so if the property was worth $30,000 and what they built was worth $100,000, they would get what of 70%?
They would get the 10% of the new value, the 10% of the $100,000. So in that case, they would get a full $10,000 rebate.
Okay, but they had something to begin with, right? I mean, I was just rhetorical. You can think
Yeah.
about it and let me know.
It's improving the taxable value of whatever is being built. So if they're demoing something that has a value of, what,
Yeah.
$20,000, and they put $80,000, an $80,000 structure up, it's improving the taxable value, and we would do up to $8,000 based on $80,000.
There's an assumption there, I think, that the cost of demolition is probably going to be more than $10,000. We didn't think it was right to rebate the entire cost of demolition and then get into some crazy things. So we just wanted to kind of keep it simple. So as people are reading it, like, oh, okay, this is just simple. Whatever the new value is, that's what it is.
Okay. David, isn't that what our foreclosures does, though? When you foreclose on properties and they're decrepit and old and fallen in disrepair? I mean, don't we have one that's in foreclosure now that just needs to be leveled or knocked down? I thought there was one they were going to go in and,
The one, we have one in foreclosure that the staff's recommendation is probably it needs to be leveled. So, this would benefit that property, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, so the difference would be is, right now, we did file foreclosure on that one last week, and without this ordinance, the city is going to have to pay for it. And I think as a part of your proposal that you sent out to council, it was presumed that council would have to pay for this. I think where this ordinance fills that gap is you could have a buyer other than the city show up at the courthouse steps, understanding that, hey, I could get up to $10,000 from the city of Erlanger if I buy this property and demolish it myself. So I think it's encouraging. The idea was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the idea was to encourage third parties to come in and take care of some of these issues so that we didn't have to, as a city, spend the money to demolish it ourselves and then market the property and sell the property.
Yeah, but I think the key there is to encourage them to come in and tear it down, and build something new versus come in, put some paint on it, get to that minimal level and have additional issues down the road.
Because the one on Center Street, like that we just initiated foreclosure this week or last week, a good wind will knock it down. That house is, that is not in good shape.
But yeah, that's the thing. If we can market this enough to get someone to go down there, bid $10,000 on it, and tear it down, rebuild, and essentially get that investment back. That's a win for the city, in my opinion. Something we don't have to mess with. You're getting somebody else to take ownership and actually improve that area.
Yeah, because we had discussed some other options, and we thought this one kept the liability with someone else and not with the city. And that's one of the things that we were trying to avoid as well.
But I think the key part is to make sure that, you know, say when the person tears it down, you go, oh, you guys did a really good job. Here's your 10 grand. Oh, bye. You know, but it has to be, well, the wording has to be in there to make that happen.
Correct.
It is.
Okay.
They have to build the structure, and after the fact, that valuation of that structure is at least 10 or 100,000, then they could get the 10,000. Which any house,
They don't get the money until it's done, and the way we have it currently written is the Economic Development Director, Dave, would have to approve it. So he would have to approve that they have put significant value back into that property, and then it's literally a grant program where we reimburse them for their demolition costs.
All right, so which is better, though, to offer the 10,000 or to offer a percent?
It's a percent up to a maximum of 10,000.
Okay, so, but the 10,000 would be for a value of the property of 100,000, right? Okay, okay, so it's 10% up to, okay.
If somebody builds a 1,000.
I gotcha.
as long as they replace the house, I mean, just about every house, new house is going to be valued at 100,000 or more, even base model.
Yeah.
So essentially, they should get to 10,000. But it's capped at 10,000 per that ordinance, unless it's changed.
And this would expire at the end of, the fiscal year 2021. And so if we decided, hey, this was successful or it's not working, we can just let it go. We can try to change it and make it a flat $10,000. We have some flexibility to do this. This is not permanent, ongoing. This is, let's try it for a year, see if it works, see if it encourages some redevelopment.
I mean, I think the hope is that someone will get wind of this that does this for a living and say, hey, we're going to demolish 5 or 6 of these homes. We now get our demolition costs back. We'll put a home on it. We'll resell it. So now they're selling a nice-looking $150,000 house, and it's new. And it
Which
certainly
there's
is
a great market for
right.
houses in that
I'll
price
market
range
all
right
day
now.
on that. Right. So the lots here in Erlanger and some of these, the lots will go quick if they're naked. Unbuilt on is probably a more politically correct term.
All right, is that all the questions for Mr. Meyer? All right, we'll move on to item number 5, trailer parking ordinance discussion. Mrs. Reckers.
So I've been working with Mr. Kramer over the last few months to create a trailer parking ordinance. So the current, how's the current ordinance written? Where?
So it started really with the larger campers and RVs that people have been parking in front of their residence, which right now is allowed. You're allowed to have up to 1 RV in the front of the residence. And that's kind of how everything started. And, everyone who's been here, we've went back and forth. I think one year we went 2 changes, if I'm not mistaken, in 2012 on that. And I think along with the blight, looking at blight as just an added, could be an added issue, and we've had a couple complaints, this year alone. So I was looking to just see if there's any recommendations for changes of making, certain trailers, the smaller ones that aren't, utility type trailers that aren't huge eyesores, but when you have a 40-foot RV that's in front of somebody's house,
12 months a year.
12 months a year, it becomes a storage location in the driveway. Neighbors have to see, there's some that have sight issues, going around it on certain roads, and we've got pictures to kind of show. I had the codes enforcement officers kind of go around, take pictures of all trailers in the city, and then I compiled them into a what would be acceptable, would not, under some of the ideas that we had along with codes on and what would be appropriate and what would not.
So, and I drove around, and there's some that are pop-ups with blown-out tires, and it's aesthetics, it's about blight, and it's about, reducing as much, nuisance and rubbish as possible, but also looking at it, we looked at other communities to see what their ordinances look like, so that it was very uniform and similar. We have a lot of our residents that use utility trailers on a, I had trouble saying that, on a regular basis for work, and we don't want to say, nope, you can't have that there for, you know, an extended period of time, particularly if they're using it. So do you want to show the pictures, and then I can?
So we had an ordinance like this. It was time for the time of the year, like
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
And I believe we went away from it because of the enforcement that was the issue.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was part of the concern. So I understand there are some issues, like the blown out tires, I understand that, but isn't there other things that would deal with that?
Yeah, and we, so I don't have the inoperable, like, I mean, we saw some pretty banged up utility trailers that are they're just being used for, they're storing them in front of homes versus them being operable. So this would allow parking for enclosed utility trailers, RVs, pop-up campers, travel trailers, campers, boats, et cetera, for up to 72 hours in their driveway or the street in front of the house, in front of the residence. All trailers would have to be in good working order. Utility trailers would be allowed in the front driveway if they are not enclosed, and 2 or less axles and in good working condition.
These are some old pictures that we've collected a little bit.
It did snow in November,
So-
before Thanksgiving.
No, that's not Erlanger. You of course had to call me out on that one, didn't you? I've done research, but we're trying to get some different ideas of good and bad.
So this resident would have be allowed to park their RV there for 72 hours, which is very similar to our neighboring communities.
So the 72 hours would be, the intent would be for loading and unloading
Yep.
to be, pre-trips and post-trips, as opposed to a storage of that. Something like this additionally would be, they're doing a storage,
With that last
running a
picture-
storage business here is
With-
the issue.
With that last picture, it's an operable,
This one here,
yeah, there
it's
were no-
operable.
It's just there 365 days a year.
So the neighbor next to it, sitting on their porch, this was actually one of the original complaints.
Are there any safety issues, any other?
It could obstruct sight, quality of life, block
I-
views for passing vehicles and pedestrians.
No, so there's things I would get. I just struggle with, telling a property owner that if there's no safety issues and there's no, it's operable, that they can't park something.
Well, as of 24 months ago, it was the same here in Erlanger, 72 hours, right? It just changed last year?
No,
Or when was it voted on?
I think it's 2012, wasn't it?
2000, okay.
Yeah, I think
So,
2012,
mistaken.
we made an extra change. Beginning of the year, we changed it, and then we changed it again at the end of the year. So I don't know the history.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think we
remember.
changed it again, I think it was around 2015 or 2016, there were some modifications. I thought at that time, I'm reading it right now, I'm not seeing this in here, but I thought it said that you could park it in your driveway, but it couldn't protrude past the face of your house. Do you remember that?
I think it was believed between March and October, you're allowed to have
Yeah,
it.
on concrete too, yeah. So that we could allow this. Yeah. I don't,
That's what the old ordinance said,
that
yes.
sounds more familiar.
There's a couple on Hallam, and their side yard is actually fronting Teakwood, and I've heard people complain that when they drive back
I've got that picture on here.
Okay, I was gonna say, people have complained to me about that, and I told them, I said, well, that's our ordinance right now.
So 72 hours for boats.
So that's on unpaved, that's in the front of the house.
Allow rear yard parking that must be on a paved surface. No. We will allow side
Which
yard
one?
parking.
Yes, yeah, that
but
one
it must be on a
is current.
continuously paved surface behind the front corner of the house. So,
So the proposal, this one would just need to be backed up about 4 feet.
Yep.
And then it would meet requirements
Yeah.
that it's a foot from the
so
front corner.
that could stay there, it just has to be backed up 4 feet.
And that's enclosed, so it wouldn't be allowed. So those are all the not allowed. Want to go to the other ones?
Sure.
So these are the ones that would be allowed by the recommended choice here, since that is behind the front corner side yard. This is a utility trailer, would be allowed.
Operable.
Again, as long as they're all operable, that would be allowed. This one's probably a little too front, but again, move it back a couple feet. You're meeting. Don't look at the grass. Now, there is an ordinance if there's a utility trailer and it's just got garbage on it, they're not allowed to just store like a car or old parts. I mean, so that's an ordinance that we can actually take care of that's already in there. So that's all the ones we had listed.
So you're allowed to have them as long as they follow, they're pushed back enough to where the aesthetics are within the ordinance. Do you guys have any more questions?
To me, an ordinance is only as good as the enforceability is, okay? I mean, if you've got a nasty neighbor on one side in one subdivision and they complain about everything, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
So some of the ideas that we had were, again, he mentioned the rubbish ordinance, that our guys would stay on top of that. 6 months grace period to be in compliance with the new rules. And then a letter, we talked about mass producing a letter to be delivered to all applicable residents, kind of like a warning notice, but more of this is the change to the ordinance, that would inform the homeowner of the ordinance changes themselves and advising them on the time frame to get compliant. So they would receive that information in a more positive way before it would be enforced.
So how are we changing it? Are we changing it? Is that what we're doing? Like saying they can have it in the front for 6 months? I thought that's what we already had.
No, so, I mean, again, we haven't written the ordinance, that'll be something that we come afterwards, it's more of a discussion right now. But the recommendation, I guess, that we've researched and talked to codes about is that they would you're allowed to have a large trailer in front of your house, either on the street or in your driveway, for 72 hours. Again, the purposes of loading and unloading of the camper, so it's not that's your storage, because right now one of the properties has multiple trailers over the last couple of years, they could just be renting their driveway out to somebody for RV storage.
Now, that seems a little bit excessive, Matt.
I'm just saying,
is
at
that
the
there's
current
a lot of things
ordinance,
that
it's
are
a
possible, but I
possibility.
think it's crazy to say that someone's going to rent out their driveway. I know you're in
I wasn't
favor
trying to
of this
be,
change,
I
and
wasn't trying
it
to be
feels like
crazy.
you're throwing that out there just to,
So,
For 72 hours.
but
If I give you 10, can I use the bathroom? If I give you 10, can I use the bathroom?
Any other questions?
They'd be able to park it all year round if it's in
If it's pushed
their
back
side
behind-
yard
On a paved surface.
on a paved surface,
Yep,
okay. 'Cause,
absolutely.
yeah,
It's
Well, that's
just-
what we have, and that's what I told the people, that it was legit.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's just to keep, it's a I mean, there's safety reasons, because some of them are obstructing the view for drivers and pedestrians, and it gives more uniformity, if you will, and aesthetics would be similar in all areas of Erlanger. And like I mentioned with the trailers, that a lot of our residents use them for work and working in the yard and other reasons, and that's why, you know, that part is definitely different than our neighboring communities, as we would allow them, as long as they're in good working order and maintained and not carrying rubbish, they can stay. That's, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, our sixth and final item of the night is our Task Force 2020 planning session. So, let's see here. We did this last year, and I thought it was pretty awesome. We've had a lot of tangible results coming out of some of the task forces. So if we want to go ahead and do like a slight recap of some of the task forces that existed through 2019, and then whether whether we're going to continue them in 2020. So Rebecca, would you want to start with a small business task force?
So the Small Business Task Force met quite a few times in the last 12 months, but from that, our very first project was to focus on our legacy businesses, and we developed the Legacy Revitalization Grant, which is 10 $5,000 grants that are available to legacy businesses. And we've had a few applicants so far, which is exciting. So our current focus is thinking of what we can do for other businesses that are younger to Erlanger, as well as incoming businesses. And our next project, which is of no cost, is going to be on March the 11th. We are working with the cabinet for economic development with the state of Kentucky and Triad and Dave Hahn. And we are going to have a workshop for an underutilized business tax credit that's available to small businesses. So working on an educational piece right now. And we met today to discuss what we'd like to do for the next fiscal year. So we're going to start drumming up some ideas. And this is a task force that I think should stay and continue. Because it's successful, and we're seeing progress come from it. So,
Can you remind us who's on the committee, and if we needed to make any adjustments, do we need to reach out to any other business owners or any other department heads or anybody?
So myself, Tyson Hermes, Dave Hahn, Mayor Fette, and Michael Stubblefield.
Linda Young.
And
Joe Durrett.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
Is there any other voice that you want to be heard while you're moving forward with 2020?
That's an excellent question. I don't think it would hurt to potentially reach out to somebody from our commercial partners if we have contact that is a commercial partner. If not, I think that the team that we have is doing great things. So we can talk more about that another time.
Do you think it might be beneficial to add Mr. Gatlin?
I mean, just kidding.
I mean, I know he did have to attend some of our
He takes the fun out of it.
meetings.
No, that's fine.
He did have to attend some of our meetings, and as we're going into some of the discussions about,
Yeah, you are welcome to join all of them, or just the ones where we start to draft on it. Yes. Because like I said, you have to take the fun out of our sales, but that's okay. That's what you're here for.
all right, Mr. Meyer, do you want to give an update on the blight? I know that you had said we're done,
Yep.
right?
yeah, I see no reason at this point for Blight Task Force to continue. We've got, obviously, I think Dave has a list of the remaining areas. We'll continue to survey them just to make sure that we're fair to all areas of the city and don't get ourselves into any trouble. But yeah, I think at this point with the grant program, and then I think that's next year we'll see what the success looks like and determine if there's something else needs to be done at that point.
Okay. I guess I'll give a really quick update on the Heritage Day Task Force that's now become the Summer Send-Off Task Force. We had eliminated it towards the end of 2019 because the planning and the sponsorship, the branding, all of that was completed. However, now it's implementation time. And I think this is going to be a huge group effort. And I would like to create the Summer Send-Off Implementation Task Force. And I would ask that we have participation from all departments, Public Works, definitely, police, fire, and then anybody else that is interested in participating. I do plan on putting this one out to the entire city because I think the more volunteers that we have, the better that we have to completing all these tasks. It's going to take a small village to make this happen. But with our sponsorships over $30,000, I mean, we have the opportunity to make this absolutely amazing. So anybody that is interested in helping me, and if department heads want to get with me after the meeting or within the next couple of weeks, because we got to get on this pretty quickly, of who you'd like to send my way, that'd be awesome. Anybody want to be involved with the Summer Send-Off implementation?
I'd be happy to.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. And I'll get with you.
Contingent on when meetings will be,
Okay.
I can be available.
Okay. We can talk about what time we better see you. I mean, maybe now that the Blight Task Force is done, we can steal their time. At 5 o'clock was golden. 6 o'clock.
6 is perfect.
Oh, yeah, 6.
6 before a 7 o'clock meeting is awesome.
Okay, all right, I'll get with the other department heads. Anybody have another task force that they want to touch on? Tom?
So we did have the Facilities Study Task Force. We combined that with the Community Center. Our recommendation came back February, March timeframe is that we need to look for a new location, bring services and consolidate under there. Goes along with your branding plan that you're looking at. We put off the facility study for a long time. You know, we had some hazards in Public Works. We probably need to get that addressed this year. So ideally, you know, the big great idea would be a location, bring the services together, get rid of some of these properties. However, we still need to do something about that Public Works building. So I think that needs to continue with that focus maybe for 2020.
Okay. Is there any additional resource that you want?
I think we have the folks in there. Peter and I were working on that. If anybody else from the city council would like to be on that, that'd be great.
Okay. All right, so. So maybe just having it be the facilities task force.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have the big idea. We have everybody put their input. We have everything from a shooting range to
Oh, yeah. I've heard all these.
all the stuff, all the plans. The other one was Stevenson Road. That was initially on the Department of Transportation's plan. That may have been bumped. I have not looked at that lately, but that is part of there within the next 3 years. So.
Do you find that we need to continue that one, or?
I think we just need to put pressure externally on them. I don't think there's anything that, the planning to do it until we get closer to the time.
Okay.
Which could cross 3 to 5 years now at
Okay.
this point. So.
Okay. I think the only other task force that we had was the Erlanger Commerce Center Connection Task Force, and that was led by Ms. Pitts. And I know that she had met, you are on that as well, with Bill Howard. Oh, and Rebecca. Is this something that we need to continue, or?
I think we still have some opportunities. I don't know if they're, until we get some fixes to that area, I don't know if we're going to be able to, anything to do with that right now. We're still dealing with the trucks. We're still dealing with the other things, so.
Yeah, mid-February, we should be adding the curbing. Myself, Peter, and Ed Bailey walked it last week for over an hour and had some new ideas for traffic controls and things like that. We'll be getting with the owners up there. The semis have definitely gotten better, but it hasn't ended yet. Every time we think we've had a good month of nothing, and Patty sends me somebody else that's complaining. So we've been working with all of them, and but middle of February we should have the new curbing, so that should help out a lot also.
Okay. I think that concludes all of the 2019. Oh, sorry.
Midway through the year, we made another task force that was looking at the employee paid vacation benefit. And we met once on that, talked about it. I think without the support of council, the staff, or Mr. Gatlin, we decided not to meet anymore.
Thank you. Okay. So that concludes the 2019 task forces that are moving forward, those that are disbanded. So we have the Small Business Task Force, the Summer Send-Off Implementation, and the Facility Task Force that's moving forward to 2020. Now is the time, if there are new task forces, new projects that you want to see throughout 2020, and this is your opportunity to get the buy-in, get the people that you need to help accomplish that goal. Does anybody want to get started? Mrs. Kyle?
I just want to ask about the facilities. Did you say, Tom, that includes the senior citizen, community / youth, whatever? So that's included? Okay, because I wanted to make sure we didn't forget that idea.
That was a separate task force, and looking at what the decision from the facilities task force was, hey, we combine these things, what do we do with them, and that's what felt like the
Okay.
So I will tell you that we're going to 2020 with facilities.
Right, and I understand that. Yeah, you have to put first things first. But that's why I was against tearing down the building over here, because I thought that could be a temporary community center, and we paid $200,000 for the building, then we just tore it down, and I was so ticked. You know why they tore it down? I asked the guy who designed this building here, I says, may I ask why you're tearing that building down? He says, we need more parking spaces. I said, well, how many parking spaces are you going to get? And he told me, 4. I said, that's expensive, $200,000 for 4 parking places. So,
That's like going around and trying to park.
All right, what building are you talking about? I'm confused.
the temporary administration building that we worked out of while they were redoing this building, because when I first was on council, we were in
Oh, I
this
was in
little
high
tiny
school.
room, and they were tearing everything down. You weren't probably even in the city yet.
Did you really just say
Yes,
that?
he did, but I'm ignoring him. But no, we operated,
Talking about getting you a raise, but you're screwed.
we operated out of that little building. And then when we moved in here, it was like, okay, let's tear it down. We need 4 parking places. I'm like, I just think it would be an opportunity for Erlanger to have some kind of
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it is down.
It was really ugly.
It was ugly, but we could have at least had something.
Okay. All right. All right, anybody for 2020 goals and plans, projects? Okay. I guess you don't need any help with it? Okay. Mrs. Kyle?
Okay, so I've been racking my brain about what things we could do to make the city better. And I came up with two ideas. First is the beautification. We've been on that forever, you know, and I think that's something that we need to push forward with.
That, Peter? Flowers on the expressway? Remember?
But I mean, I think that could be a good committee. And then the other thing I came up with, and I don't even know how you would make this a committee, but if we could have like an open forum for citizens to meet once in a while, it doesn't have to be all the time, but for them to come up here and meet with people where they could say things that they wanted to see, that we could listen to them. We're not going to be able to give them everything they want, but to bounce some ideas off of us so that we come up with some ideas of how we can help them. And I don't know what you would call that committee or how you would even do it, but it's something that I just like to do whatever citizens really want to make the city, more attractive, more appealing, more friendly, friendship city. Because I've had a lot of people say, why do we say friendship city? My neighbors aren't friendly to me. And I'm like, well, that's not, we can't control that. But yeah, just, I don't know what you would call it though, but it's just an idea that it bounced in my head.
So maybe
And-
gaining public input?
Yeah, something like that, to get public input on things that are important to them.
I think there's a lot of opportunities with that, Vicki. I mean, because there's a
Yeah,
lot
they
of
come to our
different-
council meetings, but I was thinking something less formal,
Okay.
that maybe, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't even fly. People might not even show up,
Well, but there might be multiple ways that you go about getting that public input. So understanding who your target audiences are, and maybe not only having a forum of some kind on a regular basis, but then also having a survey that's out on the website for those that are tech savvy and they just maybe don't want to leave their house. I mean, you might
Except
have.
for the older people, that's,
you
not
have
all of them are
multiple.
tech savvy.
Yeah, that's why you have multiple venues,
yeah.
multiple options. But that's a great idea. Is that something that you'd like to chair?
Yeah, I'll chair it.
I'd be more than happy to help you with that.
Okay.
Anybody else that is interested? I think if we loop Joe Christofield into that,
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
and maybe Kim Wolking.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, she did give me permission to come skating.
Oh, did she?
Is that what Corrine left?
I'm bummed. I had my rollerblades in my back.
I'm looking to see what other staff is here behind me, so we can see who else we can volunteer. Who's not here?
Okay. So, like a public input task force.
I'll volunteer so that Mr. Kramer doesn't have to. I think some dark cloud needs to be in that room. And since I'm not staying for public office here,
I enjoyed having you on the blight force.
I'll take that.
So I would,
I
yeah,
do
that'd be
remember the
great.
first time, several of you may have known this, but at one time, a long, long time ago, I was a very, very young county attorney. And I made the brilliant idea that Mondays were going to be open county attorney day, where people could just line up out the door and basically do whatever. Well, mind you, this was Grant County, Kentucky, and several of you have connections to Grant County, Kentucky. Remember that first day I'm driving up behind the courthouse, I'm thinking, why the hell is this line like 2 blocks down the street?
Oh, no.
People thought, you know what? It's free legal advice day in the county. Yeah, so it was a good idea.
Yeah, it sort of was like, woo, what have I walked into here?
To your first comment, the beautification, Peter, do you want to come and sit in this chair right here? And putting you on the hot seat, dude. No, he's totally prepared.
So I'm just going to say, Councilmember Hermes is not in the room right now, so we can volunteer him for.
Anything. Would you like to talk about the beautification idea that you have, and maybe it's something that we can all join together for?
Sure. Well, getting back to interstate plannings, it's a great idea. You know, I think a task force could go beyond that with just not only plannings, but replacing a lot of the interstate fencing that the state puts up, the chain link fencing, with more decorative type of fencing, and then with some plantings and stuff like that, and then also kind of determining what level of service does the city want to see some of the grounds maintained at. You know, maybe complement the state in their efforts with the mowing and different things. So, you know, there's a lot to be considered just at the interstate interchange. The beautification project that I was going to talk about was Dixie Highway, going north from the underpass all the way to the city limits. Going north, you know, we've done a lot to the south with the decorative streetscape and things like that, but just kind of take that idea and move it north. And then also look at other avenues as far as that streetscape and, you know, sign clutter, and maybe doing an overlay district as far as, you know, restricting signs and tree plantings and stuff like that. So beautification, Dixie Highway, north of the overpass.
Fantastic. So, Vicki, is that something that you're interested in? Okay. Something that I'm interested in as well. Peter, do you want to head that committee, or Vicki, do you want?
Just an idea.
Heading that committee.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to
Tyson
do
was
it.
chairing that committee, I think.
Absolutely.
When you were out, we jumped out.
Okay, so so I think this might be a good opportunity to have it just be city beautification with a primary focus for 2020 as Dixie Highway Corridor. Anybody else that is interested in participating on this committee? Great, thank you. All right. Peter, you want to be the chair?
Okay, sure. Yes. Did I have a choice?
Okay. All right. And then you can pull in anybody else that is on staff that you're in need of. So if you need somebody from fire, PD, or finance.
Okay.
Volunteers like to do things, that would be something I can see them doing, you
Okay.
know?
Okay. Maybe somebody from the Erlanger Business Council
Yep, that'd be great,
might be beneficial. From the Erlanger Business Council.
especially if they have a business along that corridor.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Do we have any
Bob
business?
Kirkwood. Bob Kirkwood would be awesome. She is. I'm sorry?
Do we have any businesses lined up to take 777's spot?
Not currently that I know of.
They didn't stay very long, did they? What, was it a year?
I believe so.
They were over by the CVS, where the CVS is now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They closed their Florence location as well. Okay. All right. Thank you. Do you want to talk about your other idea while you're sitting here?
Okay, well, I could go back and sit down and come back, or
No.
Okay.
Come on. Bring it.
I need the exercise.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, second idea is Urban Forest Commission. So a city of this size and especially with the type of residential and retail commercial, dynamics that we have would really greatly benefit from a Urban Forest Commission.
I'm going to ask the question, what is an urban forest commission?
Well, it's a commission that has the, I guess their marching orders would be to fulfill all the needs of a Tree City USA regulations, and which would be to have a major tree planting once a year, to have a commission that meets on a regular basis, to have a comprehensive tree maintenance plan, and to celebrate Arbor Day once a year. And lastly, they would be required to spend $2.50 per capita on urban forestry expenditures, which incorporates tree planting projects and maintenance, and things that the Public Works Department could be accounted for those dollars. So what we do already would go a long way with meeting our financial obligation. So at a very little cost, additional cost, I think the city could obtain a Tree City USA designation, and then change the city facade through urban forestry, which is huge. Go down Dixie Highway, there's not a tree there. It's unusual. So telephone poles do not count now. But it's a slow thing that, that gains steam. I think I've planted over $3 million worth of trees in my life and never got my hands dirty, so that was good. But through maintenance initiatives and tree planting projects, I think I've done over $3 million for the city of Florence, and great. And you go down Turfway, go down Mall Road, go down Ewing Boulevard, Freedom. I mean, it changes a community. It does.
Wouldn't that really be an output of the beautification task force?
It does go hand in hand, yes.
My only concern is that it requires an actual commission.
It does.
So in order to become a Tree City USA, there's very specific requirements that you have to hit. So it would have to be something that is separate from the beautification.
Right, but I mean, that's what I'm asking, is if, that work to figure out and help us understand, what's involved in creating a commission, is that not just part of that task force already? Well, yeah, that's.
What does the commission entail? So you would have to be, so it would have to be adopted through council, so you'd have to have an ordinance adopting that committee, and then they would have to have a chairman and a vice chair, secretary, so on and so forth, and then you get to set the number of committee members that you would want, 6, 7, typically, something like that, and then they just literally would have to meet on a regular basis, and that's it.
What's the funding mechanism for that? Is that a separate taxing entity? It would just fund directly out of general fund? Is that how that works, or is?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a taxing district.
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering, is that one of those, special purpose government entities? Like a
It'd be
Parks and
budgeted
Recreation?
within the city.
Like you can create a Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm just trying to understand, what that is. So it's just out of general fund?
Right. It's just there's a statutory process to create that commission.
And
Is it-
Sorry.
Is it a $2.50 per capita commitment annually?
Annually, yes,
And from my understanding, a lot of what you already do,
correct.
like technically we probably hit
We
the
would-
requirement already.
Yeah. So we'd have to spend $50,000 a year per our population. So, so Public Works already spends a lot of money on, tree maintenance initiatives, from mulching, pruning, and watering, and things like that. So, so we wouldn't be starting at dead zero trying to figure out how to obtain $50,000 worth of, expenditures. What kind of? No.
I got a question. Don't we still participate in that, I think it goes from like Commonwealth and Dixie down to maybe McAlpin? With those maybe 3-foot square in the sidewalk where they had flowers and plants all the way down both sides of the highway? Remember that? Remember that? I mean, you know, that stuff's already there. You could at least plant something again.
It's not, I don't think that Erlanger has any of that currently. I think it's on the Ellesmere side.
No, it was on both sides.
It was filled in.
So is the recommendation here to create the task force to put the information together so that it can come back to council to decide if that's something we actually want to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you be looking for council members to fill the commission, or are you looking for residents?
Residents.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll help you. Anybody else? Do we? Oh, really? Nice. All right. Anybody else interested in helping out? Oh, all right. Okay. And then we can reach out to Dave? Okay, that'd be great. Do you think your tree guy would be interested in helping us? Your tree guy, Charlie? But he's a brilliant mind. Okay, cool. All right. Okay. Do you want to go? Anybody else? I have one. You have one? You can go ahead.
So I wanted
wait.
to, as a task force item this year, create a farmer's market task force to not eliminate the Thursday farmer's market, but open up the experimental opportunity of like adding a Saturday. And I know there's been good conversation with the farmers themselves to do this, because it's all revenue. But we'd potentially do it to where it's, you know, for one trial month, we'll have it at let's say, Silver Lake Park. Or, you know, another trial month, we'll have it every Saturday at Flagship Park and a third park. And we can do this at very low cost, and in the process kind of see what kind of traffic is being drawn to it. We can kind of make it almost like a small block party, you know, invite artisanal artists to participate, but making it like very low cost for the city to experiment with this. And then from there, kind of determine if we need a permanent placement in where that might be for a farmer's market to be permanent. And I would like to share that, at least to do some research and this trial and error. I mean, I've been out to the Boone County one on Saturdays. There's a fantastic tomato guy on Turkey Foot every Saturday. I'm allergic to tomatoes, but I do buy them for other people who love tomatoes. So, and I've been to Fort Thomas. It's very well organized, and it's something we could do. But I would love anyone who would be interested in helping me.
She already does all the paperwork, like where she has to file with the state,
Sure.
so she'll be able to help out with all that.
Sure. Again, it may be a total failure, but at least it's something that we tried. And I think it would be more conducive to a lot of residents who can't make it to the Thursday one because it's over by 6. But I don't want to take away from that business. I think it's a staple, and it's important to continue that as long as the farmers want to. This is just an additional opportunity being offered into the city.
I was very involved in the farmer's market from the very beginning, and they always alluded to me that Thursday was the only day that they could come to Erlanger because they went to other places over the weekends. So I don't know, I mean, some of those vendors have changed, so maybe they may be more.
We can, again, with the task force, we can get those questions answered and see if we'd have enough interest.
Right.
And go from there. Just,
Yeah.
I don't think it would hurt to at least try to get it going as an opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I have a cursory knowledge of some grant money that's also available to cities that have a permanent place for farmers markets. The mayor and I have spoken to people from the state on this, and they're willing to put large chunks of money into the structure and things that would provide for that. So I'm sure we can connect those dots as well.
Are you volunteering to be my co-chair?
I'm not volunteering yet.
Well, for now, it can be Jennifer and I, and we'll go from there. Everyone's going to want to be on our committee by the time this thing rolls out, I'm just saying.
Well, why don't we buy the Marcus Carey property and put it in the backyard, and we would have a community center with the farmer's market right there.
Is this the first task force meeting?
No, I just love that location and that property. And it is for sale.
We looked into it. I tried to talk him into it. It just didn't work.
Him?
Yeah.
The tightwad? Oh, I can take him on.
I'm going to block that comment off. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll help you with it, Rebecca. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, I'll talk about mine really quick. I have this crazy desire to have murals in our city, and I'm desperate for some murals. We're working on it, don't worry. So,
So am I.
so what I would like to do, and this is just an idea, again, in its infancy, but what I'd like to do is create an Inspired to Design 2020 project. It'd be the first annual City of Erlanger art project. It'd be open to high school students, high school seniors that live in the City of Erlanger, so you could go to any school, or getting your undergraduate art degree at any school, but your primary residence is here in the City of Erlanger. So whether you go to UC and you are in the DAP program, or you're going to UK, but your parents live here, you have the opportunity to participate. The concept would be for them to design based on the wall within the city that we are working with. They would put together the concept, whether it would be a group project or individual, it would be up to them. I have already reached out to Greek to Me and the Missler Foundation for potential sponsorship opportunities. And because I'd like to pair a scholarship with this as well. And a $1,000 scholarship. And at this point, I do have that covered without using city funds. So the first wall that I was thinking about doing, and I've talked to Matt about this, just for ease, there's no scaffolding needed. There's a lot of walls, but we want to be able to pick one that's easy to start with. So right out on Dixie Highway, right before you get to Bonded Lock, right in front of Hallam. There's about a 70-foot wall. It only stands about 3 feet tall. There's no cracks in it, so it's not going to require any kind of structural updates. So it's a good blank canvas to start this project with. And I'm looking for a task force of people that will help judge the mural contest. So who's going to pick what's out on the wall? So anybody that is interested.
Okay, I guess I gotta tell what my vision is for 2020. I have an artist that is willing to do the underpass walls. She is currently, she's a college graduate. She worked on the mural, Fiona mural over in Cincinnati. She is just a phenomenal artist. She can, I asked Peter tonight, or Jim, if he would get me the dimensions of the walls. I'm having lunch with her this weekend, and we're going to discuss. She can, what did she tell me? She said, if it's, she's done murals by herself for 60 feet by 11 by herself. But she has friends that would come and help her. She's also a member of the, what is that, art, what is it?
Artworks.
Artworks, yeah. Yeah. She's a member of that organization. So that is my goal. That'll be my going away present to the city of Erlanger, to get that damn thing painted.
I don't want to poo-poo on your idea, because I definitely want it to happen. There are so I had a meeting with Artworks about the wall, about the underpass. There are issues with leakage. There are cracks.
Oh, I know that.
So
yeah.
what I've talked to Peter we're gonna have to figure out how much it's gonna be to fix that, to be able to make it a canvas that has the ability to be painted. So that's something that I've asked Peter to put into his budget for fiscal year coming up. So figuring out what those estimates are going to be to fix that crack. Because there's seepage, so
Yeah,
if we don't
right.
fix it, it's going to ruin
I got
the
it.
mural
I got
almost
it, yeah.
instantly. So totally on board. We just got to make it a perfect canvas first. Does that work?
As long as it happens before I leave.
That's a big ask.
Peter said he'd do it.
Oh, Peter, did you just hear that?
I've dedicated 40 years to this city. That should be my going away present, right? You'd be glad to help.
Okay. So ultimately, I'd like a mural something or other task force. All right.
I always thought that the bicycle shop should have old-time bikes on. Wouldn't that be neat?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And bonded lock, that whole wall is
Yeah.
blank,
I know.
doors and keys and,
The Hand-Me-Downs building, it's a giant canvas.
that's a horrible, ugly building, I'm sorry.
It's a canvas. It's potential.
It's ugly.
I'd be happy to serve on there as well.
Thank you.
Mr. New Senior Center.
Oh, God, I'll take it, ugly or not.
Patty, are you on the committee? Or on the task force?
I hate the word task force. Can I tell you that?
Why?
I hate that.
Why?
It sounds like we're a bunch of government workers or something.
Well, we are sitting in a government building.
Or worse, we're politicians.
Why can't we just have committees?
You know where I got the task force?
Lord only knows.
Have you ever watched a show called Parks and Recreation?
No.
Okay. I challenge you to go watch it for a little bit, because a lot of what's going on here is
It
right
might be
from
a
Parks
challenge.
and Recreation.
So, yeah, I agree, a lot that goes on here belongs on TV. I agree with that 100%.
Okay, all right. So Patty's on the task force.
Well, I think it's officially called Patty's Mural Project.
Patty's painting. Do what? Yeah.
Okay. Can I count you in, Peter? Yes. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Any other task force?
One more. This is not a big one. I think this will be actually a shorter term. One of the ones that I was actually originally thinking about was the whole Z21 piece, but I think that's going to be over in short order, so I don't necessarily think to do that. One of the pieces that I would like to do is look at surplus real estate and actually have a proposed plan for things that we've had sitting around. So either we have a purpose for McAlpin and Dixie Highway, or we get rid of it, versus just kind of letting vacant property sit there. I know there's a number of parcels around, and at least have a plan. That's really all I want to say. I wonder at times, but
So Gary, you're going to chair that
Yep.
that task force, and Matt Kramer is definitely going to be in on
he is
this.
on it.
I know you have. Okay, anybody else interested in participating in that one? Tom Cahill, okay. Okay. Dave Hahn, thank you. From the audience. Okay. All right.
Gonna go watch the
Are you ready?
meeting.
Are we also sharing goals or just task forces at this time?
You can talk about goals if you'd like to.
Okay. I mean, I've got goals. I don't want to jump ahead if other people have task forces.
No, you can go ahead.
I don't think
Okay.
it's on the agenda. There's no goals.
Planning session,
Task force.
goals.
Task force.
You can go ahead.
Well, okay, I mean, I'll share some stuff that we've been working on with fire. We've been talking about creating a training academy for fire. This could be something that could serve Erlanger or could serve other departments in the area or regionally eventually. But just starting to create a training program that would allow our firemen to receive the hours of training that they need in order to be able to serve as a fully certified fire and EMS employee. That's 400 hours of training, and they have to get it within a year. And a lot of our guys struggle to get it in the time. And a lot of our other more tenured employees are getting tired of teaching the same things over and over and over and over. So it would really, I think it would behoove us to create a more structured program. I've been talking with Chief and Assistant Chief McQuarrie, and also Training Captain Craig Stewart. I think, not to speak for them, but I think it's a doable process and something that I think everybody is pretty excited about.
So who would teach the classes, Tyson?
Well, I don't have all the answers yet. But it would be probably, we would probably share the responsibility between Erlanger training captain or captains and also other experts in the area here regionally, that we would bring in instructors for certain portions of the training.
Are we gonna offer it to other city firemen?
I would think so. I mean, that would be part of the ultimate goal would be
Right.
to create a new SOP or a standard operating procedure, right? If we're all trained the same way. Yes, exactly. That would be the ultimate goal. Something that the fire department's talked about for a while, and I believe they are on the cusp of releasing this, but something that has been a long-term goal is creating kind of a pathway to promotion as well. This is something that fire has thought would be beneficial to be able to recognize the employees who go out of their way to get additional certifications and additional trainings throughout the course of the year. At this time, when someone does step out and get additional certification, additional training, take on additional responsibilities, they don't get recognized for that. They get the same raise as the other person that might be in that same band and has done nothing over the course of the year. So finding a way to be able to recognize that and have the pay reflect that as well.
Tyson, isn't, on that item though, isn't that really, as long as the money's in the budget, it's at the discretion of the mayor and the department heads?
Yeah, I mean, this is just more so to create structure inside the department. You know, almost like having a step ladder that guys can go up throughout, you know, through inside their band. Right now, they know the bottom end of the pay band and they know the top end of the pay band.
Sure.
And there's a chasm in between there, and they have absolutely no idea how to get from the bottom end to the top end. And what we're trying to do is create a way that they can step their way up through there, inside that band. Yeah, we think it'll help with retention. One other item that I have not talked as much about with Chief here recently, but something that we would like to promote more would be bringing on fire explorers, much like the police explorers. You know, one of the things that they do fight is getting people interested in being a fireman. It seems like such a crazy thing, you know? Oh, really? I did not know that. That's very interesting. I wasn't aware of that. So resurrecting that program then, I guess, is what we would be looking at. And then I had one other item that was not necessarily fire-related, and that would be to bring on an additional social worker. I know right now our social worker is stretched pretty thin. I think we could benefit from having at least some help for her. Maybe not necessarily an equal, but at least some kind of help. I think that would be beneficial, and it would also start to help. I don't really want to say redundancy, but it would at least begin to put somebody else in place, you know, as, yeah, it could be part-time starting out. That's a great idea. That was my list. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyson. Okay. Gary?
No,
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to share, goals, task forces that we need to talk about here?
I mean, I guess we could call it a goal. When the salary data is made available, I'd like to look at all the departments to make sure that we're paying our staff favorably. And from what I understand, the data will be available toward the end of the month or the beginning of February. So that's not really a goal, but that's something that I want to work with the administration and whoever else is interested.
Okay. Mrs. Kyle?
I guess all of you got this email. There's a financial program it's like a seminar type thing being offered by Van Lehman's. Do you remember getting that email? It's to help plan budgets and understand the city. So I was just wondering if anybody was interested in going to that, because I think I would like to go to that, and it'd be nice if a couple of us could go together. It's just right down in Fort Wright, so it's, right in our little backyard.
Kara says she's going.
Who is?
Kara.
Okay. She's going. I just think it'd be nice for council people, because, it helps you understand the budget.
Okay, so if you guys want to check in with your email and see if the date suits you, that would be a great opportunity. All right, anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? Well, there is. All right. Thank you all very
Second.
much. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.